Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Simone Ferreira. I'm an advisor at EducationUSA Burke, Rio de Janeiro, and it's a pleasure to host this great session today with the representatives from Purdue University. I'm going to introduce them really soon. So I just want to ask you to keep your mics off and your cameras off, and hold your questions for the end of the presentation. You can send them through the chat, but they will be answered at the end of the presentation, okay? And I also would like to highlight that next week on Wednesday, August 25th, we are going to have the EducationUSA virtual fair. So if you didn't do your registration, just go to our website or go to EducationUSA social media, Facebook and Instagram, and you'll be able to register for the session. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to Janet Beagle, Senior Director of Graduate Programs for Purdue University's College, and two students, Brazilian students, Camila Garcia Jange, and Georges Adams. So thank you, Janet, Georges, and Camila for being here. I'm going to mute my camera, my mic, and turn off my camera. And I want to say thank you for your presence today. Janet, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for coming out this afternoon. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm very excited to be here and the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Purdue University and our College of Engineering graduate program, and a little bit about graduate study in the US. And very excited that a couple of our PhD students have joined me here today to share their experiences as well. So the way that we're going to work this, I'll have them introduce themselves here in just a second. And then I've got some PowerPoint slides that I'll present on a couple of topics and then turn it over to our two experts, our two PhD students, to talk about their experiences and any advice that they have. And we'll kind of bounce back and forth that way for most of the presentation, and then have time at the end for any of your questions. So as Simone said, please feel free to put any questions in the chat as we go so that we don't forget them and can answer them all at the end. And then hopefully we'll have some good discussion at the end. I have been to Brazil just once. I traveled around. I was able to go to Brasilia, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro quite a few years ago now, but I do not speak Portuguese, so you will all have to put up with my English today. But if some of you are more comfortable in Portuguese, feel free to ask your questions in Portuguese, because of course our two resident PhD students here can help out with that. So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves before I jump into my presentation. Camila, let's start with you. If you want to talk a little bit about where you're from in Brazil, where you did your undergraduate, and what you're studying at Purdue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Beagle. My name is Camila. I am originally from São Paulo, and I grew up in the east side of São Paulo. And I went to undergraduate in University of São Paulo in food engineering. So I wasn't based on the main campus, but I was based in Pirassununga. I don't know if any of you know, but it's in the countryside of São Paulo. And then afterwards, I went on an internship abroad in 2014 at Washington State University. And then after that, since then, I decided to pursue a PhD in the United States because I really liked the structure of the system. And my advisor from Brazil, when I was doing scientific initiation, also knew a couple of professors here at Purdue. And I think ABE, which is Agricultural and Biological Engineering Department, was a good fit for me. And so I contacted a couple of professors here, and they all encouraged me to apply for the ABE program. And then I got finally accepted into the program in 2016. And then from there, since I didn't have a master's, I went on a master's program to study rheology. And then right now I am working on modifying the microstructure of controlled release fertilizers to improve their release rates and in this way mitigate soil and ecosystem pollution.
Okay, thank you. And let me turn it over to you, George.
And for me, I'm George. I am originally from Sao Paulo as well. And I've been here for a while now. So I did my undergraduate actually in Indiana as well, in another small school. It's called Rolls-Holman. So I did mechanical engineering there and engineering physics, which is kind of nanotechnology related things. As you can see on the background, I played tennis there. So that's why I originally came to the US, but then I decided to stay. And then 4 years ago, I started my graduate studies here at Purdue. And I guess I'm currently still a direct PhD student. So I didn't have a master's either, but I had the option to do a direct PhD. So I'm just kind of skipping over the master's and getting the PhD right away. And then I work in the mechanical engineering department. And as I said, I had some background in microtechnology, nanotechnology. So I work with micro robotics right now. So basically make tiny little robots that the goal is to put them in your body and do kind of biomedical applications and in the body applications. So maybe targeted drug delivery or biopsy applications, so things like that. So yeah, I've been here for 4 years now, and hopefully I'll be graduating next summer. So in about a year.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share a PowerPoint screen here and start this presentation. Are you able to see that okay? Everything looks good? Okay. So what we're going to do for the next, say, 45 minutes here, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to Purdue and grad school. I've got about 12 slides, which sounds like a lot, but I'm going to go through them very quickly. And the intention there is just to give you a sense of where we're coming from, the type of university that Purdue is, and the type of background that we have. And then in between that, we'll hear from Camila and George on kind of their experience and why they chose to come to Purdue. You've heard a little bit about that so far. Then I know graduate school funding. How do you pay for grad school is always a big topic. So we're going to take a couple of minutes to talk about that and then talk about the application process and some application tips. I do want to mention here that I do a webinar series from Purdue every fall that's online that you would be welcome to join. I'll have information at the end of this presentation where I go into a lot more detail about graduate school funding and then another webinar on application tips. And so if either of those is a topic that you'd like to learn more about, then those are a couple of sessions I'd encourage you to attend as well. And then we'll wrap up with information, kind of what's it like to really be a grad student, life as a grad student at Purdue, and next steps for all of you. What can you be doing now as you start to prepare for your own graduate school journey? And then, of course, have some time for Q&A at the end. So that's the plan. I'm going to jump in and start running through these slides pretty quickly. So Purdue, we were founded back in 1869. And those of you that may not be familiar with Purdue, could be all of you. We are located in Indiana, about an hour and a half or 2 hours south of Chicago, Illinois, and about an hour north of Indianapolis. So you can kind of see on the map there where we're located within the United States. And we are a fairly large comprehensive university. We have about 46,000 students on campus total. About 11,000 of those are graduate students, and of those 3,900, so 3,900 are engineering graduate students. So the College of Engineering at Purdue is by far the largest college on the campus. And you can see a couple of photos here. I'm just kind of from the air to give you a sense of what the campus looks like. That fountain in the middle of the top picture is known as the engineering fountain. That's the engineering mall. And a lot of those buildings around that area are engineering buildings. And then the inset photo at the bottom, this is part of our Discovery Park. And it's one of our newer facilities on campus. Again, a lot of engineering students work in this space. And Purdue, if you're not familiar with us, we are very highly ranked as a research institution. The College of Engineering and our graduate program is ranked #2 among all of the public universities in the United States, according to US News. And so that's something that we're very proud of. Another thing that we're very proud of is we are known as the cradle of astronauts. We were the founder of the first and most recent humans on the moon. So Neil Armstrong and Eugene Cernan were both graduates of Purdue. And we have 26 astronauts now that have graduated from Purdue. Aerospace engineering, however, is not our only option. As you heard from both Camila and George, they are studying other things. We have hundreds of options at Purdue within engineering, within 14 different schools or divisions within engineering. And you can see kind of the list here that ranges anything you can think of to do with engineering. There is likely a program at a research area happening in that area at Purdue. Just a couple of program highlights that I'll mention. I like to say that we go from the largest to the smallest at Purdue. So there's a couple of pictures here. The first one is the Bowen Laboratory for Large-Scale Civil Engineering Research. So they do large-scale structures. They do a lot of earthquake simulations, a lot of other bridge construction, large-scale civil projects in this facility that they have there. The opposite end of the spectrum, we have the Burke Nanotechnology Center. And this is actually the largest and cleanest clean room among any academic university in the world. So that's another facility that we're very proud of, and a lot of engineering students work in that area. Zucrow Labs is the largest academic propulsion lab in the world. So a lot of work happening there on rockets, jet engines, combustion, all kinds of aspects related to propulsion. And another example is our Herrick Labs. This is one of our newer mechanical engineering facilities. There are multiple mechanical engineering facilities on campus. This is one that has what they call living labs in it, where sections of the entire building are set up for study of having individuals working in the spaces and the controlled environment, studying the environmental factors of that. So in addition to the actual research, the lab, the academics that are happening at Purdue, we provide a lot of resources to our graduate students. And I've just listed out some of the different examples here. A lot of our graduate students have the opportunity to participate in different workshops, attend conferences. We have travel grants to provide funding for individuals to be able to travel to conferences, and we provide awards in research, teaching, service, all kinds of aspects of professional development that we offer to our students. And certainly Purdue is very proud to be an international university. I'm not going to read through this entire slide, but you can see just some of the highlights here. One that we're very proud of is that we are the #1 destination for international students interested in STEM. So those that are coming to study science, technology, engineering, and mathematics within the US, Purdue is the #1. Brazil is certainly a country that we have a long history of connection with. We have a large population of both undergraduate and graduate students on Purdue's campus that originated from Brazil. So just generally, as you're thinking about your next steps academically, what are some of the reasons that you should consider studying in the United States? And here's a couple bullet points that I like to highlight. First, we have more top universities than any other country within the US. So about half of the world's top 20 universities are in the US. If you look at the various rankings, whether that's Times Higher Ed, the US News World Rankings, QS, all of those. And so what that means is not only are you getting an excellent education at the institution that you choose, but you have this access to these other top institutions within your network. And so there's these premier networking opportunities as you're working on your research, as you're attending conferences and engaging with these different individuals. Across the country, there's a very strong research culture and infrastructure in place, access to a lot of the world's leading publications, funding, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And of course, just the opportunity to gain additional cultural experience to study in another country. We are certainly living in a global environment now where having those different cultural experiences is really important. As you're thinking about graduate school in general, what does that look like, and why should you even consider a graduate degree? The biggest reason that I always give to students is that if you are passionate about learning or research, then you have no choice. Grad school is where you need to go. If you are someone who loves to learn, who loves to explore things, who loves to push the limits of knowledge, then that's what grad school is for. That's why you go, is to continue to learn. It's a chance for you to really receive some in-depth and specialized training and expertise. You become an expert and you become somebody who generates new knowledge. I've often heard the comparison, and I think that it's a good one, that as an undergraduate student, You are a consumer of knowledge, right? So you are someone who goes to school to learn as much as you can from people who have gone before you. As you become a graduate student, and especially as you become a PhD student, you actually become a producer of knowledge. You are on the very cutting edge of your field, and you are pushing the limits of what is known. You may be the first one to discover something that no one else has ever discovered before. And that's what going to grad school is preparing you for. It's also an opportunity to grow your professional network and to enhance your career options and really impact society in relevant ways. A lot of what happens in graduate school, especially through the graduate school research, has very practical outcomes in the real world that we all live in. We are here to solve a lot of the issues that are being faced by people both locally and around the world. So the two main kind of categories of graduate degrees that you'll hear are master's and PhD. And I wanted to just show this little chart here to give you an example of what these degrees encompass, what they look like within kind of the United States structure of higher education. And this is an example from Purdue, but this is pretty typical across any university in the US. So a master's degree is typically going to be 30 to 33 credits. And it comes in what I'll call two flavors. You can either do a thesis master's degree, which means that you're going to be doing some research along with your classwork, or it's a non-thesis option, which means that you're only taking classes. So it's courses only. There may be some projects involved, but there's not research. A master's degree is typically going to take you about 1 to 3 years, and it prepares you for a lot of careers that require specialization. So a lot of individuals that go into things like regulatory compliance, possibly a little bit of research if you're doing a thesis master's, management positions, a lot of industry type positions look for master's degrees. On the PhD side, you're looking at 90 credits. 30 of those credits can come from a master's degree. And so you heard from Camilla and George, they kind of took two different paths. Camilla mentioned that she earned a master's degree first and then went on for a PhD. And so 30 credits from her master's degree could be applied towards that PhD. George did what they call a direct PhD. So he did not earn a master's degree. He went right into the PhD program and earned those 90 credits straight after his undergraduate degree. Within the PhD, research and a dissertation is required. And it typically takes about 3 to 7 years. That's going to depend on if you already have that master's degree, then you're going to be at the shorter end. If you don't have a master's degree, you're going to be a little bit at the longer end of that. And the types of careers that a PhD prepares you for, often careers in research and development, team leads in both corporate as well as academic settings, things like advocacy, public policy. A lot of government agencies rely on people with PhDs to give their expertise in order to set policy direction. Certainly, you're probably familiar with professors, people in academic positions, academic administration. So a lot of new doors start to open up to you when you come at them with a PhD. And so what I'd like to do now is take just a couple minutes and let Camilla and George share a little bit here. And I know the two of you shared a little bit of this in your introduction, so why did you decide to go to grad school and why Purdue specifically? But if you have something more in that area, I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more there. And then also maybe how is graduate school different than undergrad, or what was that transition like for you becoming a grad student? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here so that we can see your smiling faces a little better. Camilla, let's start with you. Can you talk a little bit about why grad school, why Purdue, if you have anything to add to your introduction, and a little bit about that difference from undergrad?
Okay, so why did I choose Purdue? One of the major incentives for me to choose Purdue was that I was conducting scientific initiation program in University of São Paulo. And so my advisor, she was having collaboration with Dr. Campanella here at Purdue, who is retired now from agriculture and biological engineering. And so because ag and bioengineering at Purdue is #1, so that was definitely a very big incentive for me to choose Purdue as my first choice of graduate program. And then, so I contacted Dr. Campanella about graduate school opportunities and funding. And then he told me that I could definitely apply. So I applied to the college, and then I got admitted with a research assistantship. Basically, I got 4 years of funding from the ABE department. And so this comprised the master's, because I had to take the master's. It was kind of like going towards the PhD, but because ABE doesn't have before the prelims, ABE don't have any sort of I forgot the name exactly. I think Georges can say more, but I think it is the qualifiers. Yeah, the qualifier exams, ABE doesn't have that. So ABE choose to have some sort of like way to students that don't have a master's yet to take that first step before going towards the PhD. So that is the major reason for me to choose ABE as a department. And then the other question, Dr. Biga, what was that again? Just I forgot.
Differences between your undergrad experience and going to graduate school.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, there was I did scientific initiation in the colloids research group in University of São Paulo for 4 years. So I did have some experience with co-authorship, publishing papers there. But for me, the major difference was that besides taking a lot of coursework I had to take since I didn't have a master's before, I also had to lead the research. So in University of São Paulo, I was just learning, right, in the background and like trying to learn as much as I could about research, about the language of writing papers, but I was always like having somebody from the master's or kind of like PhD level researchers helping me out on that. And then when I came here, I was the lead on that. So as a research assistant, I had been involved in like a variety of different projects where I was the lead mentoring the undergraduate students. And to start with that, in addition with the coursework load that you have, it's kind of very challenging. But I'm glad that I was able to balance it out afterwards and everything went smoothly thanks to the support of the ABE community and my advisor as well.
Great. George.
Yeah, so when I graduated from my undergraduate, I was looking for, well, I guess I was thinking about the kind of job that I wanted at first. And then most of my friends, when they were going into industry, they were like, I just want to get out of undergrad and start making money. So, you know, just take, I don't know, like normal jobs. And I guess the most exciting ones, they would be doing CAD all day and that was it. And to me, that sounded very boring and, you know, just repetitive work. So I wanted to go, I kind of always wanted to go more into R&D or development and research and stuff like that. So for me, grad school was kind of an easy choice. Like, I'm going to go to grad school. But then trying to find what grad school or which school to go to or what kind of research to do, that was a little bit more challenging. So I mostly looked up online, you know, research in the fields of robotics / some sort of nanotechnology. And I found a lot of different places and, you know, kind of research topics to apply to. So at Purdue, I found, first of all, you know, big schools have a lot more facilities and, you know, money, and they have all the, you know, the cool equipments and gadgets. And then I was able to find research that really interested me here. So specific research topics and professors. So I was looking into their websites and stuff like that to see, you know, what kind of research were people doing at Purdue that was related to what I was interested in. So then I found my advisor, Dr. Capillari, online, and then I, you know, got in contact with him and we talked a few times, and then I even came to Purdue to visit and, you know, kind of had an interview with him and some other faculty members as well. which I think was it was a very important thing, because sometimes you want to make sure, well, all the time, you want to make sure that you're kind of compatible with your advisor. So not only you do research that you enjoy, but also you work on the same kind of, just the work expectations and how it's supposed to be done. Because I know, some professors like to be more, I guess, holding your hand and just telling you each step of the way how to do it. And some people are more like, just figure it out. So it's kind of interesting to find a good balance between how you like to work and how your advisor likes to work, so that you have some compatibility there. So, I had great interviews with Dr. Capillari, and then he ended up offering me the research assistantship as a PhD student. So I definitely accepted right away. So I'm very happy with what I'm doing. And like I guess Camila said, she had a research assistantship, and same thing with me. So basically I get paid to do research. So the first few years, I worked with kind of classes on the side plus research. So do a few credits, like 2 or 3 classes per semester, and then research as well. So my time will be kind of split in between the two. But then after, 2.5 years, I finished all my coursework. So then, the last 2 years or so, I didn't take any classes. So my whole day is, just doing research. It's very, sometimes a little open-ended, but it's not like I have to go to class or anything. So I wake up in the morning, I just do my research. So it's a lot of work. So one major tip is make sure you sign up for something you like doing. So don't go to grad school just because it's like, I couldn't find a job, I'm just gonna go to grad school because that's the only option I have, because then it won't be fun for sure. So it's a lot of work. So if you like what you're doing, then it makes it a lot better. For me, the main differences between I guess grad school and undergrad is just the amount of freedom you have. So I guess in undergrad, first of all, I did mechanical engineering, so most of my classes were very general. So I had, classes in robotics, which I really enjoyed, and then classes in, thermodynamics, which weren't so fun. But then now I can pick my own classes and, just do things that are interesting and they'll actually add to my research and more, in-depth and specific things. And now that I'm done with classes too, I can kind of plan out my day and be a lot more flexible with, when I do stuff and what kind of, like, I'm kind of in control of my own schedule in a sense. And then again, same as Camila said, there's that mentoring aspect as well. So I was fortunate enough to, have some summer students, or even during the semester, we have some undergraduate students or master students that are working on specific projects. And then, I kind of work to mentor them. And now that I'm kind of one of the oldest PhD students in my lab, I help the newer PhD students kind of get up to speed and kind of figure out how everything works in the lab and make sure everyone is on track and doing their work properly. Yeah, that's what
All right, great. And I want to highlight a couple of things that both of you mentioned, and that's that connection with a faculty member pretty early in the process. And so we might talk a little bit more about that when we get into the application tips and things like that. But I think that is something worth highlighting. And for those of you that are listening, take note of that. The importance of finding a faculty mentor that you want to work with throughout your graduate career is really important. And that is something that can start pretty early in the process as we go through. So the next topic I wanted to jump into a little bit is funding. So graduate school funding, of course, how do you pay for grad school? And one of the big takeaways that I want you to be aware of is that there is funding available at the graduate level. So at Purdue, about 70% of Purdue's full-time graduate students receive funding. And the typical types of graduate funding that you'll hear: fellowships. These are essentially scholarships. Sometimes people will use those terms interchangeably. This is often considered what you call free money. They're very competitive. They are awarded to the top students that come to the university. And they can either be internal, which means that they're awarded by the university. So Purdue has some fellowships that we give to our top applicants. Or they can also be external, which means that they come from an outside agency that you then take that money to whichever universities you get admitted to. So some common examples of that, Fulbright is one that you may have heard of. And in Brazil, there's the CAPES program that at Purdue, we have a partnership within our agricultural program. So anybody here, like Camilla, is interested in agricultural and biological engineering, that's another opportunity for some external funding. And externally, there's a separate application you apply to those agencies. If you receive that fellowship, then you take that money and use it at whatever university you want. Some of these fellowships may have work requirements, or there could be other requirements, just depends on who is awarding the fellowship. So that's just something to be aware of as you're looking at these different opportunities that are out there. By far the most common type of funding is what we call assistantships. And you'll hear these referred to sometimes as RAs and TAs, so research assistantships and teaching assistantships. And these are positions where, as a graduate student, you assist a professor with their research or with their teaching. We also have administrative assistantships. So I hire a graduate assistant in our office to help us with some of our database programming. So there's those types of positions that are available as well. And with an assistantship, you work part-time. Usually it's 20 hours a week. That's what we call a half-time assistantship. And in return, you receive free tuition. So you don't pay any tuition. Occasionally, you do have to pay some student fees, which at Purdue are about $1,000 a semester. So that's something to be aware of. But then you also receive a paycheck for your work and other benefits. So you may receive health insurance, you may receive some paid vacation, depending on the type of position that you're on. So these are really good ways to pay for your graduate education. As we think about like who gets this funding, I think this is an important thing to be aware of. So I mentioned kind of across the board, 70% of the graduate students. By far, the most funding is going to go to the PhD students. So almost all of our PhD students at Purdue are going to be funded, and they have the most options open to them: fellowships, RAs, TAs, and GAs. And a lot of this is because of those research assistantships. These are students that are doing research. You heard Camilla and George both talk about their research a little bit, and they are working with a professor who has received grant money, and then those professors hire graduate students to help them with their research. After PhD students, then thesis masters. So those master's students who are also doing research will be the next population that gets funded. In general, almost all of our PhD students are funded. About half of our master's students are going to receive funding. Then is the next category down is the non-thesis masters. So these are students who are not doing research. And so they have a much more limited pool of opportunities open to them. There are some non-thesis students who may receive a teaching assistantship or possibly some other type of administrative role. But more of these individuals are going to be funded either by an employer. So these are students who are either already working and juggling both work and school, or they are self-paying. They are putting themselves through that master's program with the goal of getting out and moving into most likely an industry type position. And then the last category that you'll hear referred to is what we call professional masters. And these are a type of non-thesis master's program. These are not research degrees, but they often will incorporate what we call professional coursework along with the technical engineering courses. So they may include MBA classes, they may include regulatory compliance classes. Often they are geared towards a very specific industry or career track. These are often accelerated programs. Some of them are done in as little as 12 months. Some of them may be a couple years long, but incorporate internships or co-op programs or things like that. These programs do not receive any funding from the university. And so these are almost exclusively funded either through an employer or individuals will fund themselves. So as we talk about funding, this is an important thing to be aware of, that the type of degree that you are applying for can also dictate the types of funding that are available to you. And I mentioned at the very beginning, I do a webinar in the fall on funding where I go into a lot more detail about the different types of funding and some application tips and things like that. So if this is a topic you'd like to learn more about, definitely check that out. I'll provide a web link at the end. But for now, I want to turn this back over to Camilla and George again and hear a little bit more from you on your funding experience. What advice do you have for other students who are looking for funding? What has your experience been? If you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great. Let's start with George this time, if you want to share your experience.
Yeah, so for me, when I received, I guess, my, letter of acceptance to Purdue, and then my advisor kind of, sent an official, I guess, invitation or contract, to get my research assistantship. So I kind of had that figured out from the beginning. And I would recommend, if you're going for a PhD, you probably most likely will receive a research assistantship just for doing research for the professor. But mainly, talk to your advisor, and he also wants you, to receive funding. No one wants to pay out of pocket for graduate school, especially when you're putting a lot of effort into research. But my experience was very, I guess, flexible. So I received my research assistantship. So for my first few years, when I was doing just mainly taking classes, that was covering everything. So no tuition, like Janet said, and I would also, kind of receive my paycheck, have my health insurance and all that. So that was great. And then last year, I wanted a little more experience with teaching. So I talked to my advisor. I was like, hey, can I, teach some class this semester? So then we went through the, I guess, just the methodology from the department to get assigned a teaching assistantship. So in this way I could participate in teaching an undergraduate course or something like that. And then I received the funding from that, along with the experience of just teaching something else. So it's very flexible. I did this for a semester and now back to research. So in that case, I just wanted to have some extra, teaching experience. So we changed the funding. But in my experience, I've had my funding kind of guaranteed for these last few years. And, I always discuss with my advisor coming, finishing a semester, starting the next semester on, funding opportunities or, kind of fellowships to apply to, because sometimes that can help as well. Just having an extra fellowship that will give you some extra money or something that's available. Sometimes it's like, oh, there is a fellowship that's available to, last year PhD students or, second year, third year. So it's always good to talk about these to make sure you're aware of all the opportunities, because there's a lot of them. So you can apply for these kind of things. I know in my experience as well, from my lab, we've had a few master students and they don't receive the, same type of fellowship. So they had to kind of on a semester basis, try to figure out, how are they getting their funding from the next semester. So usually they would just teach. And there were plenty of, especially for master's thesis, I guess they are kind of higher up on the rankings of who gets teaching assistantships first. So first is the PhD students, then it would be the master's thesis. So that's some of the master's students in my lab. Most likely all of them would teach every semester at least one class, and that way they receive their funding that way. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. And then again, like the fellowships and all that also help a lot. And sometimes even you can use these to, find different opportunities. For example, I got awarded a fellowship last year. So I will spend about 4 months in another lab that we collaborated with in France. So it's just a fellowship between the US government and France. So then they basically pay me to stay there for, 4 months. So there's all sorts of opportunities like that. You just kind of have to be aware and kind of look for these things. That also helps a lot.
Great, Camila.
Yes. So for me, it was a little bit different than George's. First I had some friends of mine from my internship at Washington State University who were like helping me reviewing my application and giving me some advice also on what to do. So I mailed a professor here in the AB department, but he did not have funding, right, Dr. Campanella. And so, but in my application process, there was an option there to put like, if you are interested, to add if you are interested in a research assistantship or fellowship. And then I added that because it would be a lot of money for me and my family could not afford it, definitely. So in my application as well, my friends also recommended me to write any essay that was important, because that would show that you have like interest in the program and that you are really willing to do your best at the work as well. So there was a diversity statement essay, and it wasn't compulsory to write, but I wrote it anyways. And then because I was really interested in applying to ABE, and that shows your enthusiasm about the department and the College of Engineering as well. But then that's not really recommended. I think I got somehow a little bit lucky as well in this process. I think one recommendation from me is that you guys contact professors and try to look for funding opportunities from them first, and then you can apply, and it's going to be a much more straightforward process. For me, I received the letter of acceptance from Purdue, and since I did not have money, I contacted the graduate program administration of ABE, and I asked her, and then they sent me a letter from my current advisor saying that I would receive a research assistantship. And I was extremely happy with that because I wasn't even expecting this to happen. But then definitely I agree with George. Fellowships do help a lot. And once you are admitted, it's very flexible for you. For example, if you don't pair up with your professor, you can always try to find within the department or the College of Engineering a professor that has funding for you. It's really straightforward. This has happened with some of my friends as well. And it's not the end of the world because sometimes we don't match well, right? Or you don't really like the research that we're doing. And as George said, it's very important for you to enjoy what you're doing because it's a lot of work, a lot of stress, and you really need to have resilience for that as well. And then I think also another important aspect that I did is, like George said, master students, typically they don't receive the same funding opportunity as the PhD students. So if you are really sure that you want to go into the PhD, so you can add that in your application as well, that you are applying for a PhD, and that's what I did. So that also facilitates the process for you to get the research assistantship as well as fellowships. So I also got a fellowship this year now. It's an internal fellowship. It's called the Bisland Dissertation Fellowship, because finally, I think I am getting into my the end of my PhD program. Finally, I can say that. And it really helps because you earn more money. And besides that, as Dr. Vigo said, these fellowships are awarded for the most outstanding students at Purdue, and I feel honored to have received this award.
That's great. All right. I am watching the time here a little bit too, so I think what I will do is combine kind of these next couple sections that I have and go through a couple slides quickly, and then we'll have some time for more discussion. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the application process. So just high level, one of the things that I want you to be aware of when you're applying to universities in the US, a lot of them are structured similarly to how we are at Purdue, is there's really 3 different offices that you could end up interacting with throughout the application process. One of them is the Central Graduate School. So in our case, the Purdue University Graduate School. They're the ones that manage the online application system, and they officially grant the admission. Then there's also a graduate office at the college level. So in the College of Engineering, that college level office is where I reside. And we really act as a liaison between that central university office and the individual schools of engineering that we have at Purdue. And then finally, you have the individual school or departmental graduate offices. And this is at the program level. And this is where a lot of the actual decisions are being made. So these are the individuals that set the admission requirements. They're the ones that review the application. So when you apply to graduate school, your application is actually reviewed by professors within the department. Right? So it's not reviewed by a staff member or an admissions counselor. It's reviewed by actual professors in the program that you are applying to. And so then those professors are the ones that send the admission recommendation to the graduate school. So the initial decision is made at the departmental level. Then it goes up to that central graduate school. They do a final credential review. They have kind of their minimums that they check to make sure that you met all the minimum requirements, and then you receive that official admission. So this is important just to be aware of, so that as you're receiving emails from universities, you can understand where that individual sits, whether they're in kind of that central office or at that departmental office, and just kind of keep that communication straight. The application itself has a lot of different pieces to it. You heard Camilla talk about some of the essays and some of the optional essays that are part of the application. Here's a list here of kind of the typical components of a graduate school application. Often there is kind of an online form. There is an application fee. At Purdue, it's $75. But I will also mention here, we have an event coming up October 3rd and 4th. It's going to be an online event. It's called the Purdue Engineering Graduate Showcase. And I'll send you the website for that towards the end of this presentation. But if you register for that, it's a free event to register for. If you register and attend that event, you will receive an application fee waiver. So you can actually apply to Purdue for free. And so that can save you $75 right out of the gate. If you're able to join that event, please do that. It's fully online. So and it's intended for students all around the world to come learn more about Purdue and then receive that application fee waiver. So I'll give you more information about that towards the end. As you look through kind of the rest of the application, you'll see there's different essays that you write. You'll need letters of recommendation. Typically they want 3, typically from professors. There are some standardized tests. This is starting to change a little bit. There are some programs that no longer require the GRE, but there are some that do still require it. So that's something to be aware of. And these differences can be at the same university, but different departments can have different requirements. So ABE and mechanical engineering, they have different requirements, even though they're both at Purdue. So make sure you're looking up your specific program when you're looking up the requirements. We do require a test of English proficiency. So the TOEFL or the IELTS are both accepted. And then you can kind of see down the rest of the list some just different experiences and things. So there's a lot that goes into this graduate school application. So those of you that may be entering into your senior year of your undergraduate or thinking about applying to graduate school, you want to actually be starting this process now. So the most common entry term for graduate school is in fall, which is an August start here at Purdue. And most of those application deadlines are going to be in December. But again, they can vary by program. So you want to really look up what's the deadline for your specific interest. And I gave you just a few quick bullet items here to be thinking about. So really about now, starting in September is when you need to start drafting those essays, taking the standardized tests, asking for letters of recommendation. Start that application process now. It may seem early, but it is not. Now is the time that you need to be doing that if you haven't already started. And then by November, December, again, make sure you're paying attention to what your specific deadline is. You need to make sure that all of those pieces of your application not only have been submitted, but have been received by the institution. And then you also want to be emailing faculty. Again, this is something Camilla and George both mentioned. You can start even earlier than November and December, but definitely by then you should be emailing faculty, letting them know, hey, I submitted an application, I'm interested in your work, starting those conversations. And then typically the decisions happen in kind of the January to March timeframe. So it's a little bit of a hurry up and apply and then wait. And it can be a long wait sometimes before you hear back from your program on whether or not you've been admitted into the program. All right, I'm going to jump over that right now. We'll get the panel insights here in a second. But I also wanted to spend just a minute talking a little bit about that graduate student experience and what grad school is really like, because there's a lot that goes into it. So as a grad student, these are just a few of the things that you're going to be involved in, right? You're taking classes, you're doing research, you're probably teaching, you may be doing field work, you're attending conferences, you're at the library, you're studying, you're leaders in student organizations, all kinds of stuff is happening as a grad student. And it really is just, it's an exciting place to be, and it can be an exhausting place to be. It can be a very frustrating place to be sometimes, but also one of the most satisfying places to be engaged in and working with as well. So I'm going to switch this back over to the panel, get their thoughts before I wrap up. But I'll let you guys comment. if you have any tips for the application process, if there's something you want to shout out to everybody about what they should be aware of. But then I'm really interested in this question too. You know, what is something unexpected about graduate school that you have encountered that you thought, wow, I did not expect that when I came, whether that's Purdue specific or just grad school, like that grad school experience, what that's like. And Camilla, that's going to be you to start us out this time. So anything you want to share?
Something unexpected. Wow, it's a very hard question. I think something kind of unexpected that I could talk a little bit about is expected but not expected when you come directly from undergraduate, I would say. I was like the top of my class in undergrad. And then when I came here, it was very difficult to kind of like align to the process because you have in your coursework a lot of homeworks and they are typically weekly, something that doesn't happen in Brazil, at least in University of São Paulo. And sometimes like you have 2 midterms and then you also have like an overall like exam about everything that happened in this semester. And I came here, it was unusual, but I came in the spring semester. So it was a lot of snow, a lot of cold, and I didn't have a car, so I had to battle over that. And it was I was expecting it to be like all flowers, you know, nice. I know it was winter, but, you know, it's really struck me in the first semester. And at the same time, I had to mentor 3 other undergraduates in the process as well in different projects besides my thesis project. So it was, and so you have to really be able to fight the unexpected, which I would summarize as the failures that you will have into the graduate school process. They are not easy. They will happen a lot. But this is what I was talking previously about, having resilience and knowing like what you really want to do and how to be pragmatical and to solve those issues, because this is what PhD is about. It's about you having the resilience, patience, and courage to go and do it. And besides that, you always have that process of like the research is not going well. So you kind of like go into the levels up and down, up and down, up and down, and you have to be able to keep up with that, those, and take them as opportunities and don't give up. That is one of the unexpected things that nobody told me. Even my friends, when I was talking to them, they were here in grad school already, but they were just encouraging me to do the application and saying, it's awesome, you will see, it's amazing. But nobody really told me how to deal with this, the problems that you will encounter as well. And besides that, you can have life problems happening in your family, which can be disturbing as well. And they will happen, but we have to go through them, fortunately or unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's true. You need to have resilience. That's for sure. For me, I think most unexpected thing. I think when I came in, I was thinking a little bit. A lot of people were telling me, you know, when you're doing a PhD, you're focusing on only one thing, and you're just going to work on this, and you're going to become an expert on that field. And I kind of thought like, not like I would forget about everything else, but it would be a lot more focused on just like one thing. And I was just surprised about the amount of kind of collaboration and work with different departments. And like, you know, I've started doing research and I just thought, you know, I'm going to be going to the clean room and making some robots and then testing them. And now I talk, you know, to people in biomedical engineering. We're getting rats involved. We're getting, you know, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, I think I have more friends that are outside of the department that are in the department. So it's just, I think for me, it was just like the amount of, like, there is so much stuff that you can work on. So even though you are like working on a narrow field, maybe just on that field, there's just like such a wide range of applications, or, you know, different things that you can try out, or, you know, just different equipment that you can use. And I think Purdue like really provides you with the tools, and you know, it has a lot of labs and facilities and research, and so there's always like someone doing something similar. So at least in my lab, we're trying to figure out how to do one thing that we've never done before. Like, I don't really do chemistry, but, you know, we're like, how to do this chemistry. I'm like, I bet someone at Purdue is doing this thing. So we look it up, find someone, you know, they're like, oh, wait, they're like down the hall. Let's go talk to them, you know, and then see what's going on. So I think that was kind of unexpected. Regarding the snow, yeah, compared to Brazil, there's it's a lot cold. It's very cold here. I think in my experience, every winter is the same thing. When it starts snowing, I'm always like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna stay inside and I'm gonna, you know, drink my coffee and watch the snow, and this is great. And this will last about a week or two, and then the next 2-3 months it's gonna be terrible. But you know, it's fun. It's different. I like that at least there is, you know, 4 seasons here. So, you know, the summer is hot, fall gets a bit cooler, then you have winter. Like in Brazil, it's always hot. At least here, you know, you have a little bit of different seasons, which is interesting. You know, I like it. I really like it. You can go skiing, but then you can also go to the beach. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right, very good. So I'm going to wrap up here with just a couple of slides, and then we will get to the questions that are coming into the chat. So the last couple of things I want to mention is just, you know, after today, there are some resources here. I will share these slides with Simone, and I believe that she will share them out with everybody so that you will have these links. But this is the event I mentioned, the Purdue Engineering Virtual Graduate Showcase. It's a fully online event. It's free to register. You'll get a free application waiver. The live event is held on October 3rd and 4th, and there will be some on-demand content as well. So definitely check that out. It's a great way to come learn more about Purdue. There'll be workshops on a lot of topics as well. And then just a list of websites here that I will provide for you, ways to visit our website. The webinars that I mentioned, if you look under our upcoming events tab out on our website, you'll see all of those listed. You can register there. Those are all free to attend. We have a lot of informational videos out on our YouTube channel. We continually add to that. We have a Prepare for Grad School playlist, so you can look at that to get more tips for applications and all kinds of things out there. And then just a link out to our grad program search. All right. And then my email address is there. And I know Camila and George's email address are on the first slide here as well. So if you have questions specifically for them, they said that they'd be willing to chat with you all as well. All right, so let me take a look at the chat here. And I realize that we're getting close to time. And I see that Dr. Donna Weinstein, she's our Associate Dean for Graduate Education at Purdue. She has chimed in the chat with some of the answers. So if you see her answers there, that is great.
Yes, Janet, I think, well, everything you addressed was very important. Thank you, Janet, Camila, and George. I think some students have received some questions about personal statement, because, you know, to get to Purdue, students, they always have these concerns about the application process. And if you could give some tips for the personal statement, or tips that for things that students should avoid when they prepare the personal statement. Would be awesome.
Definitely. So, and at Purdue, we have one of the essays that's required in the application is the statement of purpose for personal statement. It's an essay that's really intended to show your research interests. And the biggest way I like to frame up that essay is to think about it kind of like a interview on paper, where you're talking with a professor that you may want to work with someday, and you want to say, what is it that you're bringing to the table? So what are your previous experiences? What are your interests? Why should this faculty member hire you into their research team? Why should this graduate program bring you into their program? What is it that you're bringing to the table? At the same time, within that essay, you also want to express what it is that you expect to get out of the relationship and out of the program. Why are you interested in Purdue? Why are you interested in these particular faculty members or these particular research areas? And how is that going to help you in your future career? We are an educational institution, obviously, and one of the things that we want to do is see our students succeed. And so we want to see that fit in this application. We want to see what is it that you're bringing to the table, but then also what is it that we're going to be able to provide you to help you succeed in your career path, and are we the best fit for you? And so the more you can convince us in that essay that we are the best fit for you, the more that that's going to help. And so ways you can do that, mention specific faculty in your essay. So make sure you've done your research. So Camilla and George both mentioned, having had contact with faculty members before they applied. That is helpful. It's not absolutely necessary, but you definitely should have at least done some research out on the website, identified some faculty that you would be interested in working with. List them in your essay. List the types of research that you're interested in. If you're aware of specific lab facilities or specific equipment, things that would make Purdue or this research group a really good fit for you, mention those types of things in your essay. You will want to customize your essay to the different programs that you're applying to. So if you're applying to Purdue as well as other universities, don't send the same essay to both. You want to actually be adjusting it slightly, talking about why you're a fit to the particular program that you're applying to. Those are a couple quick tips that I can give for the statement of purpose.
Excellent, thank you. And one more question, although you mentioned so many different things, but what facilities and resources are available for graduate students? I'm talking about, for example, career center or recreation center. What kind of facilities do you have there?
Definitely. And so I would love to get Camilla and George to chime in on this. What have you taken advantage of? I can start off and just give kind of a quick list, but then I'd love to hear from the two of you on what you've actually used and some other ones. So on the kind of the personal front, we have an outstanding recreational center that has an amazing aquatic center, any kind of exercise class and club and sport that you can imagine. It's an excellent facility. It was recently renovated a couple of years ago. Fantastic place with a lot of intramural sports. There are student organizations in every possible subject and topic and professional development area that you can think of. Some of them are open to both undergrads and grad students. We also have specific graduate student organizations within the College of Engineering. Each of our schools has its own graduate student organization, and then we also have a graduate student advisory committee, which is the leadership from each of those student organizations that meets with us at the college level. And so we have that communication directly with the students at the college level. I think one of the advantages of being at a university like Purdue with the size and the reputation that Purdue has, I mentioned, when I really quickly went through some of the application things, kind of these 3 different offices. And so you have resources as a graduate student at Purdue at all of these different levels within the university. So you have your immediate lab group, you have your professor that you're working with directly. Then you have your departmental resources and seminars and research talks that are happening at the departmental level. Then you have college level resources. And so we have professional development workshops and organizations and events that are happening at the college level. And then you have the university level, where you have that central graduate school as well as other offices and cultural centers around the university that are providing workshops, professional development, and opportunities as well. There are so many opportunities that are available, and I think the biggest challenge is identifying which ones are most important to you to take advantage of, and then seeking them out and taking advantage of them. We do also have an active, what we call our CCO, which is our Center for Career Opportunities, that works with our graduate students as well. They have specific counselors that are dedicated to graduate students and to help them with their career planning and path as well. So that was more than a quick overview. But Camilla and George, do you have anything you want to add there from your experience in terms of the resources at Purdue? Anything that has been particularly helpful to you?
Yeah, like you said, there are a lot of opportunities for career development, and I know the College of Engineering always has lots of workshops on like random things. Sometimes how to write a CV or how to have better graphics for presentations and conferences. Those are always helpful, and you get a ton of emails about them all the time, which is great. That all these things. There are also the more, I guess, like things to do on your off time. So like fun things like going to the gym. There are a lot of student organizations or clubs around Purdue that they will fit, whatever, I guess, whatever you like to do. So there's all sorts of clubs, there is, if you're like into rock climbing, there's a rock climbing club. If you're into, whatever, tennis, there's a tennis club. So you can, definitely, it's a way to relax and kind of, take your mind off of research, and kind of, it's a healthy thing to do as well, not just to do research all the time and, go to the pool or, make friends doing something else. So that's a great way of making friends and getting to know people. And from my experience, at least, I participate in a lot of these kind of more sporty type of clubs, and there's actually a bunch of grad students that participate in them. So mostly, I made a bunch of undergrad students, but there are a lot of actual, grad students that are pretty much doing the same thing as you. They're in the same boat, usually from different departments, but you get to, meet new people. There are also a bunch of clubs that are for kind of professional reasons. So not specifically research oriented, but, they have like a Mars rover club that they will, work on making vehicles for other planets. There's like some sort of like rocketry club. So there are some other, kind of engineering related, and maybe that's not your research, but you're really into, rockets. So you can join the people from that club, and they're all interested in the same thing, and, kind of work with them. So this is kind of like a fun way to just, relax and meet new people and do some different things too as well. So yeah, and then we have the Graduate Student Center, which is kind of by the main campus. There is a little area for the grad students they can meet, and they usually host events, and some of them are professional development, some of them are they used to have coffee breaks all the time, or every Monday they had donuts. It was always great to come in the morning, stop by the Graduate Center, get a donut, and keep going on your way. So there's some free food involved, which is great. Always good to have a little coffee break in the afternoon with some donuts. So yeah, there's lots of things like that to kind of explore. It's a big school, so there are a lot of opportunities, and either in your departmental clubs, or student organizations, or even in the general more like College of Engineering events as well.
Great. Wow, it's a lot, huh?
I also want to add that there is the writing lab as well. I myself have not used this resource, but I think it is, I've heard some friends of mine that have used it, and it's really good for them. And they have some classes as well offered like every semester that you can go to on how to write like papers, help with dissertation writing, thesis writing as well. So it's very helpful. And I do love the COREC, which is our recreational center, because I love swimming. I used it to compete before undergraduate. So it's really nice to be able to do that and relax. There are a lot of concerts in Purdue as well with the Purdue convocations. So you have the opportunity to attend to concerts from top class musicians as well here in Purdue, as well as plays. So it's really nice. Yeah.
Wow, very exciting. So Janet, we need to wrap up. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think we were able to cover everything that we intended to. So definitely anyone that has questions, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I will share the slides. So take a look at the links that are in there. And we hope that you do come join us for our virtual showcase in October. Please go ahead and register for that. Yeah, reach out with any questions. We're happy to help.
And thank you for this lovely and great presentation. You all shared so many important information. This is going to be very beneficial for our Brazilian students. And as I said in the beginning, I'm going to download the presentation and add to the EducationUSA Brazil YouTube page. So that's it. It's going to be available, not today, but probably tomorrow. Okay, and thank you for coming. And we are looking forward to other events with you all. Thank you, Georges and Camila, and thank you, Janet. And for the students who are participating in the presentation, we are looking forward to meeting you at the EducationUSA Virtual Fair next week on Wednesday, quarta-feira, às 4 da tarde, das 4 às 8 da noite. A gente vai ter uma Virtual Fair do EducationUSA com a participação de 80 universities. 80 higher education institutions are going to participate in our Virtual Fair next week on Wednesday from 4 to 8 p.m. We see you there. Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye. You can be the next student to go to the US. Don't remember, and EducationUSA can help you with this. Bye-bye.